You'll never forget that sound, the soft rustle of wrapping paper being slowly torn. It was the only thing anyone could hear. No carols, no laughter, just the delicate crinkle as my daughter, Kaya, carefully pulled at the edges of her gift, her small fingers working the paper like she was unwrapping a treasure. For a brief moment she smiled, that kind of quiet, hopeful smile children have when they still believe magic might be real. But when she opened the box, everything changed. First came the confusion, her brows pulling together, then something deeper surfaced, something sharp, something that stung. Her tiny shoulders tensed. She looked at me. The box was empty. No tissue paper, no toy, not even a note, just plain cardboard, exposed and bare. I saw it before she said a word. My mind scrambled to make sense of it. Was it a mistake? Had something fallen out? Had someone forgotten? And then I heard him. My father, Frank. A short, cold laugh burst from his chest, clipped and harsh, like a bark on a frozen morning. He leaned back in his armchair, folded his arms, and said, "Kids like her shouldn't expect anything. This world's already full of takers." My heart plummeted. Kaya froze. Her hand stayed inside the box, still searching, like maybe, just maybe, there was something hidden beneath a flap. But there wasn't. There was nothing. I felt the heat rise in my chest, my fingers trembling where they rested on my knees. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words splintered in my throat. Then my sister Sandra let out a dry snort and muttered, just like her mother, always expecting a handout. Pathetic. My jaw clenched. I could feel the tension winding through my face, the burn rising behind my eyes, dangerously close to breaking. I looked at Kaya. She wasn't crying, not yet, but her lips were pressed into a tight line, her chin trembling the way it does right before it all falls apart. Her eyes, those soft, wide eyes, were welling with tears she was too proud to release. She glanced at me again, not for help, but as if asking, should I pretend this doesn't hurt? And in that instant I hated myself. I hated that I'd brought her here, that I'd let myself believe foolishly that maybe this Christmas would be different, that maybe Frank could be something resembling a grandfather, that they might see Kaya for who she truly was, a kind, imaginative, extraordinary little girl, and love her even a little. But they didn't see her at all. To them she was just my shadow, a symbol of my failed marriage, a reminder of the mistakes I carried. The room was silent, oppressively so. The only sounds were the low hum of the heater and the tick-tock of the old grandfather clock behind Frank's chair, each second thudding louder, like it was counting down to something I couldn't stop. Kaya looked down at the empty box once more. Her fingers gently traced the edges. Then slowly, she folded the flaps shut. Her hands were shaking now. And then, in a voice so soft I barely heard it, she said, "I got you a gift too, Grandpa." All heads turned. Frank looked up, that smug grin still planted on his face. "Oh yeah?" he said with a dry chuckle. "This should be good." But Kaya didn't flinch. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small piece of paper, folded with such delicate care it made my chest tighten. She stepped forward, held it out to him with both hands. And I knew then this wasn't over. Something was coming. Something no one in that room was ready for. I hadn't been home for Christmas in over 2 years. Not since the divorce. Not since the shame. Not since everything I'd tried so desperately to hold together finally gave way. 3 weeks before Christmas, Kaya had asked me, "Mum, do I have a grandpa?" That was her way of asking why it was always just the two of us. Why we never had big trees, matching pajamas, or cousins to chase through the snow. I told her yes. And when she asked if we could visit him this year, I said yes again, despite everything in me screaming no. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I thought time had dulled their sharp edges. Maybe I hoped that if they really saw her, they'd feel something, warmth, regret, maybe even love. But the moment we pulled into the driveway, I felt it, that old weight settling onto my shoulders, that tightness in my ribs, that silent scream you bury when you walk into a house that never wanted you. Their home hadn't changed, still cold, still spotless, more museum than memory. My mother greeted us with her usual brand of polished politeness. A quick hug for me, a pat on the head for Kaya. Her eyes lingered on the scuff marks on Kaya's boots, lips tightening ever so slightly. Sandra barely looked up from her phone. "Hey," she said flatly, then scrolled on. And then there was Frank. In his usual spot, whiskey in one hand, remote in the other. He didn't even stand, just grunted, didn't think you'd actually show up. That was his welcome. Kaya gave a shy little wave, her mittens poking through wool. "Hi, Grandpa," she whispered, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to say it. He grunted again. Still, she tried. She had made little drawings for everyone, coloured them so carefully, folded them into handmade envelopes with their names written in blocky letters. She even asked me how to spell Aunt Sandra because she wanted it to be just right. She worked on those drawings every night for a week. I'd scraped together what I could tips, overtime, anything to buy her one nice outfit, a small gift, and enough gas to get us there. That morning, as I tied her scarf, she asked, "Do you think they'll like my drawings?" I smiled and said, "Sweetheart, they're going to love them." But deep down I already knew. I was bringing her into a place where kindness was never free, where love came with conditions, where smiles were weighed like currency. Still, I hoped. I told myself this was about her, not me, that I could play nice, keep it together, fake normal for one day. But now, watching her heart quietly crack over an empty box, I knew the truth. They hadn't changed, and maybe they never would. Kaya began handing out her envelopes like they were sacred. She moved through the room gently, carefully, as though afraid to disturb something fragile. Each one held her hope, and no one in that room deserved it. Her handwriting was big and careful, each letter drawn with the kind of effort only a child gives to something that matters. She handed one envelope to my mother first, then Sandra, even to my brother Matt, who hadn't said more than a single word since we walked through the door. When she reached Frank, she hesitated, just for a second, long enough for me to hold my breath. But then she smiled, lifted the envelope, and said sweetly, "Merry Christmas, Grandpa." He didn't even look away from the television, just stuck out his hand like she was a mail carrier, not a little girl offering a piece of her heart. Kaya walked back to the couch and sat beside me, her face still lit with hope. She hadn't noticed yet how cold the room had become. Then Frank reached beneath the tree and pulled out a large silver-wrapped box topped with a too-perfect red bow. "For you," he said with a grunt. Her eyes widened. He shrugged as if to say, "What? It's got your name on it, doesn't it?" She looked at me first like she was asking permission. I gave a small nod, even though something deep in my gut twisted. She slid to the floor and pulled the box into her lap, her small fingers gliding over the wrapping paper like it was something sacred. She took her time, slowly undoing each corner, each piece of tape, savoring the moment. She wanted to remember it. Then she lifted the lid, and in an instant I saw her expression shift the exact second she realized the box was empty. No tears. Not yet. Just confusion. Her brows furrowed. She reached inside, feeling around like something must be stuck underneath. Then she looked up at me. Empty. Frank burst out laughing this time. Loud. Cruel. "What, you thought it'd be something real?" he scoffed, leaning back in his chair. "Well, doesn't hand out gifts just 'cause you show up, kid." Kaya blinked, her hands froze. I couldn't move. And then Sandra, always eager to cut deeper, chimed in from the couch. "Well, she is just like her mum. Always expecting someone to hand her things, no wonder." The words hit like a punch to the chest. I turned to her. "Sandra, don't!" She raised an eyebrow, smirking. "What? It's true." Kaya sat in silence. The empty box lay open in her lap, flaps sticking up like wings that would never fly. The room had turned on her, and I saw her realize it. I hated them, for making her feel small, for laughing like her heart didn't matter, for making her question her worth. I reached for her, but she didn't move. She just stared down at that empty box, like if she waited long enough, it might fill itself. Inside I was screaming, "Say something, stand up, protect her." But I didn't want to make a scene, not in front of her. That's the thing about families like mine. You learn to freeze when things turn cruel. You learn to smile through clenched teeth, and had spent so many years doing just that, it almost felt normal. But it wasn't. Kaya was only 7. She didn't know how to wear the mask yet. She hadn't learned how to swallow that kind of pain. Then, softly, so softly I almost missed it, she looked at Frank and said, "It's okay. I got you a gift too, Grandpa." And just like that, the whole room shifted. No one laughed, no one said a word. She reached into her coat pocket, and I suddenly understood something was about to happen, something none of them would forget. The room was silent, so quiet I could hear the faint creak of the old floorboard near the tree as Kaya moved. She pulled out a folded piece of paper, small in her hands, fragile, like something that could be dismissed without a second thought. But she held it with care, like it mattered. Kaya, I whispered, maybe not now. She turned to me, and in her eyes was something I hadn't seen before, not sadness, not pain, but calm, steady, unshakable. She gave me a little nod, the kind that said, I need to do this. Then she turned back to Frank. I made this for you, she said. Frank didn't move, didn't even lean forward, just glanced over, that same bored look he always wore whenever someone dared ask him to feel. Oh yeah, he muttered, sipping from his glass. Let me guess, snail man or something. His voice was thick with sarcasm, sharpened by the years. But Kaya didn't flinch. She walked across the room and held it out with both hands. Her fingers trembled. I recognized that tremble, that subtle betrayal of nerves when your chest is thudding and your body begs you to run but you don't. He took it from her lazily, like it meant nothing, unfolded it with one hand, still holding his drink in the other. Then he stopped. I couldn't see what was on the page, but I didn't need to. His face said everything. Not irritation, not confusion, just stillness. His eyebrows pulled together. He blinked once, then again. His jaw slackened just slightly. What is it? Sandra asked, impatient. But he didn't answer. Kaya stood in front of him, hands clasped, unsure what came next. I crossed the room slowly, afraid to break the moment. I placed a hand on her back. She didn't look at me, just kept her gaze fixed on Frank. And Frank, he looked older than I had ever seen him. Not angry, not smug, just human. He folded the paper with a care that startled me, like he was handling something sacred. Then he placed it on the table beside his chair, and stood. No one said a word, no one moved. He turned and walked out of the room. No slamming doors, no dramatic exit, just the sound of his footsteps echoing down the hallway. Kaya looked up at me. Did I do something wrong? She whispered. I knelt beside her, wrapped my arms around her tightly. No, sweetheart, I said. You did something brave. Sandra muttered something, but I didn't care. Not this time. Because whatever Kaya had drawn or written had cut through in a way none of us ever could. She hadn't fought back with bitterness. She hadn't cried or screamed. Or she gave him something real. A reminder that he was still human. And I think, just maybe, that scared him more than anything else. Frank didn't come back for the rest of the day. Not for dinner, not even when my mother called out sugary sweet that dessert was ready. Kaya didn't mention him again. She played quietly, tying ribbons and folding scraps of wrapping paper with that same focus she always had. But I could see the mind wandered to the hallway where Frank had vanished, waiting for something. But nothing came. We left early the next morning. I told them we had plans back in the city. The truth? I couldn't stomach another hour of pretending. Sandra didn't get up to say goodbye. My mother handed me a foil-wrapped plate of leftover ham and told me to drive safe. No one mentioned what had happened. No one asked how Kaya was doing. And somehow that hurt even more. The car was quiet. Kaya sat staring out the window, watching as the snow blurred past bare trees like streaks of soft white paint. I reached across the center console and took her hand. At one point, she gave mine a small squeeze back. I didn't ask her about the drawing. I didn't want to pull apart something that clearly meant so much to her. I didn't want to touch the quiet magic that had lived in that moment. But the truth is, I thought about it the entire drive home. What had she drawn that made my father, the man who once told me I was too soft for crying at a movie go pale, and walk out of a room without saying a word? I found out 4 days later. It came in a small, unmarked cardboard box, left on our front porch. No return address, just Kaya's name written in big, careful block letters across the top. She opened it slowly, like she wasn't sure if it was safe to hope. Inside was a music box. Old-fashioned, wooden, the edges hand-carved, delicate roses painted around the lid. When she turned the tiny metal crank, it played Somewhere Over the Rainbow, soft, a little off-key, like it had travelled through time just to find her. There was a note. One line, handwritten in a shaky, unfamiliar scrawl. To the bravest girl I know, thank you for remembering her. No name, but we didn't need one. Kaya clutched the box to her chest like it was made of gold. She didn't say anything at first. She just held it and smiled. I sat beside her on the floor, my voice quiet, when I finally asked Ka, what did you draw for Grandpa? She looked up at me and said, It was a picture of him holding hands with Grandma and me. Her voice was soft, steady. I told him I hope he smiles again one day, she added, because I remember how she used to make him laugh. My throat tightened, words caught somewhere between awe and ache, because that was it. That was the part of him I had forgotten even existed, the man who used to smile, who used to laugh. Before grief hardened him, before bitterness settled into his bones. Kaya saw through all of that. She didn't try to fix him, she didn't offer pity, she offered hope, and somehow she gave him a piece of something he thought he'd lost forever. Not forgiveness, not redemption, but a beginning. And sometimes that's enough. The music box now lives on Kaya's nightstand. Every night before bed she winds it up, not always to listen, sometimes just to hold it, to feel its weight, to know it's real. The way a child holds onto a stuffed animal they've technically outgrown but still can't quite let go of. She hasn't said much about that day since, but once in a while she'll bring up Grandma, someone she never met, but talks about like she knows her, like she's still here living in the spaces between stories and silence. And maybe in a way she is. Frank never called, never sent another message, no apology, no explanation. That's not who he is. Maybe that's not who he'll ever be. But a week after the music box arrived, I got a letter. It wasn't for Kaya. It was for me. Just 3 lines written in that same uneven, unpracticed handwriting. I was wrong about you. She's a good kid. Hope you're doing okay. No signature. But I knew. And for reasons I still can't quite explain, I cried. Not because it made everything okay. Not because it erased the silence or the damage or the decades of disappointment. But because for once he saw me. And more than that, he saw Kaya. He saw what I've always known. That she's special. That she has this quiet magic that peels back the cold from a room and shows people their own warmth, even the ones who don't deserve it. She doesn't shout. She doesn't demand attention. She just changes things. She changed him. Not all the way, but enough. Enough to make a man who had shut the door on the world open it just a crack. Enough to make someone who believed in silence and toughness and nothing else pause long enough to hear a song. People sometimes ask me why I went back that Christmas, why I let them near her, why I didn't protect her better. And the truth is I thought I was. I thought keeping her away from them, from their coldness, was protection. I thought not visiting, not talking, not opening that door was the way to shield her heart. But Kaya didn't need to be shielded. She needed the truth. She needed to meet them, to see the world for what it is, beautiful and cruel, kind and broken, all tangled up together. And somehow, instead of getting lost in it, she decided to add her own light. She didn't need revenge. She didn't want an apology. She just wanted to give a gift. And that gift, as simple as it was, did what I couldn't do in 30 years. It opened a door. Not wide, not forever, but just enough. Enough for a note to slip through. Enough for a song to play. Enough for a tired, angry man to remember a piece of himself he thought had died. That Christmas, Kaya reminded me of something too. That kindness is a radical act. That a whisper can carry more weight than a scream. And that when we choose love, even when it's hard, even when it's not returned, we create something no one can take away. A shift, a memory, a gift. So if this story touched something in you, like share, comment, and maybe just maybe give someone in your life the gift of a second chance. You never know what doors it might open.